Would you rather date somebody who talks in their sleep or somebody who walks in their sleep? They don't talk. Like they sleepwalk, but they don't talk. They just like go to the fridge and like open it and get some water and like go back to bed.
I was gonna
like,
say, are they doing like weird things like that could potentially like harm me?
Yeah, maybe get like getting up and standing in the corner or something. And you're like, what the
I don't know. It all sounds really bad.
So today, all we're going to do is just like you tell me what your little rabbit holes are, which I feel like we kind of talked about. And then I'll go off in my little rabbit hole and I will find you an expert in your thing that you want to learn about. And then we'll come back with the expert and we'll do a conversation. I've heard how are free rays built, which is actually interesting because I have no idea. Whale communication was an interesting one. Somebody said, like, how do whales talk to each other? The science behind deja vu and like lucid dreaming.
I'm like really fascinated. So it's like kind of in that lucid dreaming state, but it's more in just like dream interpretation and like, why do some people dream and others don't? Or like, why can't we remember our dreams after we dream them? If I dream about something and it's like really interesting, like I find myself like almost wanting to wake myself up to remember the dream.
That's so interesting.
But then there's like, why do sometimes when you're dreaming, like, do you ever wake up and it's like you have like sleep paralysis, like you feel paralyzed or you're like so with fear and you can't move?
Yeah.
Like you're like, I know I'm dreaming, but I can't force myself out of this dream. I just am fascinated by all of that.
The dream remembrance point is cool because I feel like there's different times in my life where I remember my dreams more.
Yeah. And then like, why do people I don't have recurring dreams.
Oh, interesting.
People will be like, they can pinpoint one thing that they dream about obsessively. And I'm like, I've never experienced that.
I feel like that means you must be like a super creative person or something because like my dreams are just like on repeat. Like my brain can't manufacture another vision for itself. So we just cycle through the same shit. Or you're good at processing. Maybe that means you're good at processing.
Why do some people talk in their sleep?
Girl, it's creepy. I don't love it.
So weird. That would be so terrifying. Especially too, like, I mean, some people are like mumbly, but some people are like full on.
Full conversation.
Saying like real things.
Totally. Okay, I love this one for you. And I love this one for me because I want to learn about this too. Okay, curious people, we've got an amazing episode for you today, an amazing pair. On the pod, we've got Shannon Race, who is the CEO and founder of BeautyCon, which if you don't know her or her product yet, you will soon. It is lining the shelves at Whole Foods. It is selling out. I am not just hyping her up because she's a dear friend of mine, but that's probably a part of it. She's truly incredible. Shannon was super curious about dreams. So we brought on Dr. Sidarta Ribeiro, who is a Brazilian neuroscientist and the founder of just checking my notes here to get it right, founder of the Brain Institute at UFRN. His book was reviewed by the New York Times. They said about his book, you can't help but be awed and enchanted by it. I want to say that ever since recording, I haven't just been remembering my dreams and writing them down like a lot of people, including Dr. Ribeiro, recommend. I've also been sharing them. So I've been sharing them with like old friends who've popped into my dream who I haven't talked to in a long time and reconnecting with them. And that's been just super lovely. I've worked out a business idea. I've laughed a ton because dreams are ridiculous. And when you share them with friends, you realize how even much more ridiculous they are. There's one thing that Dr. Ribeiro said that really stuck with me and that I hope you take away. And that is to consider taking the events of your dream life as seriously as the events of your waking life. And if you listen to this episode, you'll understand why. I should say bom dia, right? In Portuguese, is that correct?
Yeah.
Beautiful, yeah. Beautiful. Okay, I spent some time in Brazil for the World Cup many years ago. So it was beautiful. I loved it. And where are you calling from?
Cool. I'm in Natal. That's like up in the northeast by the beach.
Yes, beautiful. And am I pronouncing your name right? Is it Siddhartha?
Siddhartha.
Okay, wonderful. Yes. Okay, thank you. And this is Shannon, a dear friend, and the founder and CEO of BeautyCon. And she's joining us today because she's fascinated about dreams.
Oh, sounds great. I mean, we all dreamed, right? So we have something in common.
Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah.
I was actually telling Tanya prior to us starting this recording with you, that one of the things that came to mind when I was driving over here was that I had recently went and saw this woman speak about neuroplasticity And you being a neuroscientist, I was like, oh, of course, he's got to know a lot about neuroplasticity. And one of the things that I was thinking about was, is there any sort of link between dreaming and our ability to control or not control dreams and neuroplasticity as a means to retrain the brain? And I'm just curious of your thoughts on that.
The thing here is to keep in mind that there are several layers of evolution that we need to address. So sleep in itself, and in particular REM sleep, is very, very important for neuroplasticity. So there's a lot of sleep dependent mechanisms for memory consolidation, memory restructuring. A lot of what we do during sleep is to forget many memories that are not relevant. Then we tend to store those that are really relevant, but also to recombine or restructure memories. So, which is a process that underlies creativity. And all that happens without necessarily one having a subjective experience of a dream. And without necessarily somebody bringing that experience to the waking life, making a dream report, sharing it with somebody else. So those are, I think, the most sophisticated and more recent parts of this whole, let's call it, neurobiological machinery of adaptation. So when we talk about plasticity and sleep, this is all happening at the molecular level, the level of gene expression, at the cellular level, very like basic mechanisms. But when we're talking about dreaming, we're talking about something that is at the psychological realm, that has to do with how we face our fears and desires and challenges and so on. So it was only, so the first time that scientists were able to show quantitatively the benefits of sleep was 101 years ago.
Wow.
But a similar study for dreams was only published in 2010. So it took us nearly 100 years for dream research to catch up with sleep research.
Oh, that's so interesting. And why is that? Is that something like, we were recently talking about the science of telepathy with an entirely separate conversation, and something that came up, and reincarnation and all of these kind of, I guess, other sciences. And something that came up in that conversation is it's harder in the field of science to validate telepathy or reincarnation, or it's not taken seriously. Is that a reason that maybe dream research, or tell me about why that's kind of where I'm going here is.
I think that there are lots of topics which are not considered scientific, such as those that you mentioned.
Yeah.
And they may become scientific, like acupuncture was not considered scientific 40 years ago. And now it's to a large extent validated by science. When I was doing my PhD in the 90s, it was not considered very serious to be studying dreams. It was sort of like flaky science, it's not something you should be doing with your time.
Flaky science, but we all experience them, flaky science, but we all experience it. It's a common experience. Yeah. Okay.
Well, it's frustrating. That has changed, right? Yeah. I mean, if in the 90s to study dreams was sort of it was bad for your career. And this changed to a large extent because of the pioneering work of Bob Stickle in Harvard. And now it's the opposite. Now to study dreams is super sexy. It's like, wow, there's a lot of funding for that. So things change. It's like psychedelics. Like if you study psychedelics 20 years ago, that was
very taboo, probably.
Very bad for your career. Mm-hmm. Now it's the opposite. Yeah, dreaming became mainstream.
Yeah.
As in the biomedical sciences.
So going back to, because you started off by talking about REM sleep, can you just explain what REM sleep is? Are there do you go through different cycles of REM sleep? What does it mean if you don't ever reach REM sleep? What happens, or kind of what could the outcome be of that? I'm so curious about that, because it's something that is discussed a lot now, especially in the field of wellness, and how important it is to just your overall well-being. So I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Oh, this is an excellent question. So when we go through a night of sleep, we go through 4 to 5, sometimes 6 full cycles of sleep. Each full cycle has 4 states: the non-REM state 1, the non-REM state 2, the non-REM state 3, and the REM state. What is the REM state? It's the moment when we have the most vivid dreaming. It tends to be a very intense experience in terms of the subjective quality of the experience, which is not to say that dreaming only occurs then. Dreaming also occurs during the non-REM phases, in particular, the first and the second, with various qualities. So I would say the more complex dreams are, yes, they occur in REM sleep, but you can have pretty interesting dreams in different states. And there's lots of details in terms of what we now recognize as local sleep. Local sleep means that part of your brain may be in a certain state, another part may be somewhere else. So you can have, this is very obvious actually when we think of how we get to be drowsy when we are sleep deprived. It's like you're here paying attention and then you doze, and it seems like it's something that hits you and then you come back. And the correlate of this is the brain going to sleep in different parts, and eventually globally sleeping. So when people are deprived of sleep, which is something so common nowadays because people stay awake too long, the screens are all over the place, and then we still wake up more or less at the same time. So we go to sleep after midnight, but we still have to wake up around 6 or 7, whatever.
Yeah.
So what happens is when you curtail your sleep, of course, you're going to curtail the second half, because the first half is what you're going to have anyways, right? You enter sleep, you're going to have the first half of the night, and the second half may be, fragmented or damaged, because you have to wake up too early, considering the time that most people are now going to bed.
Yeah.
So what happens is that we tend to curtail REM sleep rather than non-REM sleep, because the first half of the night is dominated by non-REM sleep, and the second half of the night is dominated by REM sleep. We do go through all the phases, but during the first half of the night, we tend to stay long in the first non-REM phases and very, very briefly in REM. And in the second half is the opposite. We have the opposite. We tend to go very quickly through non-REM and linger in REM. So if you are sleeping 6 hours, 5 hours, 4 hours a night, then you're really missing a lot of the REM sleep. So what are the problems with that? REM sleep is super important for emotional regulation. So if you lose REM sleep, you tend to wake up with a decreased ability to regulate emotions. So basically you become very irritable, cranky. And this has a social effect because it will tend to, this is work done by the lab of Matt Walker in Berkeley. Very good work showing that when people are sleep deprived, they lose empathy. They become insensitive to the pain of others. And they feel loneliness, and they feel distant, and they literally so there's a test in which you measure the interpersonal distance that one considers comfortable. And so you basically click a button when you feel that person is approaching too much. And that distance that you consider the correct distance, it increases significantly if you're sleep deprived. So quite literally, sleep deprivation is disaggregating society, I think, in a very systematic manner.
That's so interesting. And is that sleep deprivation, or is that also tied to the dream state? Like, is it when you're dreaming, you then feel more empathy? We
don't know how to disentangle this yet, because most of the dreaming is happening during REM sleep.
Yeah.
So it's hard to isolate one from the other. It can be done, but it's hard. I don't know any good study on this. So there's let's say the more sophisticated level of problems and the more basic level of problems. The more basic is bad emotional regulation. And also, REM sleep is very important for the selection of memories that will survive. During non-REM sleep, the brain tends to connect a lot. Many synapses will be formed. So it's more like connect everybody and see what happens. But then during REM sleep, in the studies that were done in animal models, you see like 70% of synaptic killing. So basically, you add synapses during one state, and you remove synapses during the next state, and then you keep doing this across the night. So the consequence of this is that you sort the best representations. This is at least what we think, that you are by adding and then subtracting, adding and subtracting. It's like cycles of mutation and selection, in a way. Mutation and selection of memories.
That's
Wow.
so fascinating.
Yeah.
If you are deprived of REM sleep, you are very likely losing this selectiveness of which memories you really want to carry on. For example, you can be promoting false memories. Now, the more sophisticated level, I think it hasn't been properly studied yet. There's a lot of knowledge in the realm of psychology that neuroscience hasn't really delved into. So what is the benefit of sharing your dreams with other people and with people that actually want to listen, which is a rare thing these days? This hasn't been properly quantified. The few studies that can do this at the clinical level show a lot of benefits, not just in terms of sharing dreams, but in terms of having certain kinds of dreams. For example, there's a recent study, a nice study showing there's a particular therapeutic benefit if you have what they call a cathartic dream. So a cathartic dream is a dream that begins very badly and ends very positively.
Okay. Okay.
To have this sort of like trajectory of emotions in which you start, fighting, and then you end up you overcome those obstacles. This seems to be very healing.
That's fascinating to me, because I think that to me takes us into the lucid dreaming aspect, like the level of kind of active participation and control you have into a dream. Is that first of all, is that common? Because I feel like I experience it sometimes, but not always.
Sometimes, yeah.
And is it true that is it a thing? Is it real? Do I actually have control over what's happening in my dream?
Yes, lucid dreams are quite real. They exist. Until a few years ago, some specialists even doubted that people could have lucid dreams because they didn't have the experience themselves. But now it's pretty established. It's another one of those fields in which it was really difficult to do research 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, and now it's completely different. We just published a paper in Journal of Neuroscience. We're part of a group coordinated by Martin Dressler, a group that has people across different countries, in which we had the largest sample of lucid dreaming ever. And we saw amazing changes in the brain. It's a very complex phenomenon that involves specific changes in brain processing in various parts of the brains, in particular the temporoparietal junction and the precuneus, different areas, more posterior areas that have to do with visuospatial consciousness. But the thing is this, for most people, lucid dreaming is something that is very rarely experienced. You tend to have more of those experiences when you're a teenager. And then as we go into adult life, with all the constraints of adult life, we lose that ability. Most people lose that ability because it's something that occurs only when you have already slept enough to not have a strong sleep drive, but you're still okay if you can linger in bed, let's say.
So those teenagers that are all oversleeping, like 20 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
Right? That's teenager life. Right. It's something trainable. And it has been known for millennia. It's a whole discipline in yoga nidra in India. It's a whole discipline in yoga milam in Tibet. So there's a whole ancient knowledge about how to become very apt at having lucid dreaming. And it has been shown at the clinical level that when people experience repetitive nightmares, for example, that become a problem, sometimes that becomes a real problem in people's lives. Learning how to become lucid is a very effective way to deal with that. Because if you're facing a horrible nightmare and you know how to become lucid, you basically dispel the nightmare and you enjoy the dream, right? So that's an ability that can be acquired. And there's a very important US specialist on this, which is worth mentioning, which is Stephen LaBerge, who is the pioneer and still, he just published this paper together. And since the late 70s, he published work in California, by the way, showing that there are several techniques that you can employ to produce this kind of dreaming.
Is it kind of a similar, I would say, repetitive practice to learning how to meditate? Are there similarities in how?
Yes, and it's not a coincidence that this ancient knowledge developed in the realm of yoga.
Yeah.
So because lucid dreaming is becoming awake and alert to the inner world.
Right.
And it's like riding a bicycle. If you are too inattentive, you doze back into regular dreaming. If you become too alert, you wake up. So you cannot go fall to the left or to the right. You have to be in the middle. And in the beginning, it's very difficult because it's actually frightening. Many people experience awe, but also fear, because you don't know what you're going to find. And then eventually people learn that it's okay, that you cannot hurt yourself, that you will not go mad, that you will come back. This kind of, all those thoughts that go through people's minds when they are going through those experiences for the first time.
So there have been several times where I believe I was lucid dreaming, but then because I was scared, I would try to forcibly wake myself up. But then I would have issues waking myself up, which made me more scared. Like I couldn't move, but I want to be awake because I'm telling myself in my dream, this is a dream. This is a dream. This isn't reality. So what is happening when those things you're experiencing those things?
When we go to sleep, the brain is huge, right? I mean, we have 86 billion neurons and even more glial cells. So it's a very complicated thing. So as I mentioned before, there is this phenomenon of local sleep. You can have parts of the brain that are in one state and parts of the brain that are in different states. When we go to sleep, there are systems, very old, deep systems here in the brainstem that will switch off the muscles. And this is very important because if you were to act out your dreams, you would actually wake up, right? So it's important that your body is still so that you can really have the dream. And this has evolved across in mammals, in birds, and so on, reptiles, and so on. However, if you have a mismatch of the timing of sleep between the cortex, the main, let's say, site of consciousness in most theories, and those deep nuclei that control the muscle inhibition, you will have two very distinct phenomena that you probably experienced. One, which you already described, which is when you are waking up, trying to wake up, your cortex is already awake, but your muscles are still inhibited. So you feel paralyzed. And this is a mismatch. And if you relax and wait a little bit, then the information gets there and then everything is fine. Of course, there are some conditions in which people will be trapped there, and then they need some treatment. But then this is at the end of sleep, right? When you're waking up. The same system can have a mismatch when you are entering sleep. And what happens then is that your brain is still awake, but your muscles are already inhibited. And then the experience of that is of falling. So sometimes you're dozing and you feel like you're falling. Yes. And this is because you're losing muscle tone very fast.
Yeah. That happened to me on the plane ride like 100 times yesterday. I was on the plane and I was like, oh yeah, exactly. Is that related to the experience of sleepwalking when we have people who?
No. Well, I shouldn't say no so categorically because we're still learning a lot about this. But sleepwalking, sonambulism, typically happens during non-REM sleep.
Oh.
When the muscles are not completely inhibited. This muscle tone reduction is progressive, and then it becomes like maximum during REM sleep. In non-REM sleep, you still have some muscle tone, and this is when most people have episodes of sleepwalking and so on. Which mechanisms are involved? It's quite complicated, and I'm not even an expert in this particular question, so I shouldn't say it's not related to the same mechanisms, but it's certainly not happening in the same sleep state.
I think one of the things that I also am really curious about is trauma in sleep and how how sleep is kind of a mirror of trauma in your life and how you can use dreaming as a tool to potentially eradicate some of the traumatic experiences you've had, or what is kind of the process of that or the correlation?
Yeah, because when you have a certain type of trauma, physical, emotional, whatever, at the first glance, sleep is the best thing you can do because of the restorative powers of sleep. And so you can have a lot of protein synthesis, hormonal synthesis, detoxification of the brain. So many good things will happen, right? When people are hurt, they need to sleep. Sometimes you cannot go to sleep, like if you have a concussion or if you have some whatever, damage to your brain. Sometimes you cannot go to sleep because that can be a gateway to the coma state. After the acute trauma has occurred, if it involves an emotional trauma, sometimes you break a leg and that doesn't cause you tremendous emotional pain, but sometimes it does. And we're talking about a memory, a negative memory that is like a scar, and this scar is not healed when you have trauma. This is what we call post-traumatic stress disorder. You become very sensitive to every kind of negative stimulus and stimuli. And so what is the problem is that sometimes to go to sleep in that condition will actually make it worse. Why? Because during REM sleep, you have a lot of memory reactivation and recombination. So you basically, as you pass endogenous electrical activity through those networks of neurons, they will tend to activate the same memory. So people go to war, spend horrible years in war. They come back. Every time they doze, every time they relax, and certainly when they go to dreaming, they re-experience that and they can re-traumatize themselves. So in that case, you need to intervene. So people need treatment. It's not going to go away by itself. People that go untreated, they can have this for decades. It's a horrible condition. And in a way, it gets worse and worse and worse because you are digging deeper. That memory is becoming stronger and stronger and stronger. So the way to deal with that, there are many different ways. You can go New Age, or you can go psychoanalysis, or you can go, very clinical. But in most cases, I think what's a common theme is that you need to reactivate that memory trace while also pairing it with something that is non-aversive and monotonous. So you're trying to transform a horrible memory into something like, yeah, that wasn't cool. So you're trying to decrease this emotional tone, not to forget them. It's unforgettable, in fact, but to re-signify it, to blend it with other memories so that you are not every time falling in the same trap. Yes, you can do actually even some pharmacological approaches, but even then, it requires people to face that memory and give it a different color,
That's really interesting. And it makes me think about, earlier we were talking about the upsides of sleeping, right? Or the downsides of not sleeping, rather, increasing distance between us, those tests. But what are the benefits of dreams? I'm sure you've written extensively about why it's good that we dream, and all of that. So can you tell us a little bit more?
In our society, most people don't recall their dreams at all. And when they do, they don't write them down. And when they do, they don't share them with anybody. And when they do, people don't pay attention. So there are many levels of disconnection from this cycle, which really is not just about remembering, but about sharing. Okay. And the importance of sharing is, first of all, when you share your dreams, just by telling them, it already gives you a huge perspective. Just by talking. Yeah. Right? That's already interesting. There's a very interesting anecdote in the life of Carl Jung. He had this dream that he didn't know what it meant. And then he was walking in the garden and he saw the gardener. And he said, "Oh, I have this dream that I don't understand. Can you help me?" And he tells the dream to the gardener. And then the gardener says, "Well, I think it means such and such." And then Jung says, "It certainly does not mean that, but now I know what it means." So
wow.
just by having somebody to talk to gives a lot of perspective. And of course, a dream does not have to have a single meaning. It can have as many meanings as deemed proper by the dreamer, right? The dreamer will judge whether that interpretation is interesting, because dreams are characteristically polysemic. They have multiple meanings. Sometimes it's phonetic, sometimes it's imagetic, sometimes it's a metaphor, sometimes it's all of that, right?
Yeah.
There are several studies showing the benefits of dreaming, well, not several. There are some studies showing the clinical benefits of dreaming lucidly for nightmares, or having certain kinds of dreams for depression. Also there's an image called, there's a therapy called image rehearsal therapy, in which you daydream positive things, and then you try to incubate that into your dreams as well. So this has success. I think it's difficult for us living in urban contemporary societies to gauge how useful, how healthy a very rich dream life can be, because most of us do not have that experience. We don't know people that have this experience often. But it's very interesting when you have the chance to interact with human populations that actually never lost the connection. For example, Native Americans in many traditions. It's very interesting, because then you see that the conception that we have in Western society of dreams as something that are either nonsense or only relevant for the dreamer. In those societies, I don't want to generalize because there are too many, but in many of those societies, dreams are a social event. Dreams concern everybody. Dreams have to do not just with the fears and desires of the dreamer, but also how those fears and desires can be managed to navigate the fears and desires of everybody else, which is just not just people, but animals, plants, and so on, spirits. I'm a biologist, so I'm very skeptical about extra-physical, spirits that are beyond the known physics. But I'm also open. I mean, I'm agnostic. I mean, let's see the evidence.
Of course.
But I think what we need to recognize is that the spirits, they certainly exist at the psychological level. Whether they exist at the extra-physical level, I don't have an opinion about that. But they certainly exist at the psychological level. The people that we encounter when we dream are real. What are they? They are representations in our minds that are, to a large extent, autonomous. I think this is important, because in our society, we tend to think that we are alone in our minds. But in fact, we are not. There's a zoo of creatures in our minds that we meet when we dream, and we meet when we daydream, and we meet in different trance situations. And in most societies, these encounters are deemed super important, super relevant. You can learn from these encounters, right? And in our society, it's like, nonsense. Sorry, I talk too much.
No, it's okay. We both just have so many questions that we're so excited.
This makes me think of, she had mentioned this podcast that we had learned about, the telepathy tapes. And one of the things that a friend of ours had talked about was he met someone who has an autistic child who came to the mother in the mother's dream as an adult to convey to the mother how to handle him as an infant, because they were experiencing a lot of behavioral issues and not knowing how to address. And some of those things are just fascinating to me when you do think about Native American people and how a lot of the dreams that they have are very much like, they guide a lot of the decisions they make and how they view the world. And I mean, is that whole area of the mental state is so fascinating to me.
Yeah. And also it strikes me too, is that the even I'm enjoying not just like this conversation and what we're learning, but the vocabulary that you're using. Like, I love the term dream life, right? I think it like lends credibility to what is happening at night in our minds and in our subconscious. And the idea of one waking up and recalling. I find usually I'll wake up and I'll remember my dream for the 30 seconds after I wake up, and then I turn to my phone, I hit my alarm, the dog wakes me up, and then I say, oh my gosh, I have to call my mom and tell her about this dream, and then within 10 minutes I go, oh my god, I forgot what the dream was. Yes. So it's a nice signal to like validate the experience of your dream life. To when you do recall it, to pause and not just the importance of recalling the dream, but I think for all of us to pause a little bit more in the morning, or just take our time and slow down and remember and recall and stay curious, right, about ourselves and our intuition, and to not lose that, because a lot of your intuition, I assume, is born of what you're dreaming of at night. And then to share, I think is so important. I often tell the story. I know someone who he was living here in Los Angeles and his significant other was in just another part of the world, a very different time zone. And so when he would wake up in the middle of the night, 2 a.m, oh my gosh, that was a strange dream. And he knew that she was already awake because it was 3 p.m. in the day by her. So he would just quickly send her a message and text her or voice note and send the dream to her and go back to sleep. And in the morning would listen or reread what he wrote.
Wow.
And it became a habit. And so every day he would send her his dream. And it's just like that to me
really
is
cool.
So now, Shannon, for the next week, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to text you in the morning what my dream was.
I'm going to do the same.
And we're going to listen.
Share. Yeah. That's awesome.
So that's a deal, huh?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Fascinating.
So this is interesting, right? Because what you're saying, and I totally agree, is that we need to take the events of dreaming as seriously as we take the events of the waking life. Our dream life is as legitimate and for many societies even more legit than the waking life. And we tend to do the opposite. So we tend to have the dream and then not pay enough attention and then lose it, right? I tell you this personal example, something that happened in my life. 6 years ago, my mother died. And a year later, I divorced. And my ex moved to Rio de Janeiro. And she took the kids, and then we have shared custody. But she considers that they need to live with her. Mm-hmm. And then in 2020, that was a problem. We had discussion. 2021, 22, I was already like, look, this is it. If you're not going to agree that I can have the kids every other year, and we go to court. Mm-hmm. And then we started to gear up for that. And it was like horrible 6 months in which all the conversation was through lawyers. Horrible. And I was in Spain visiting my sister. And then I had this dream with my mother, who was very good friends with my ex. And she said, don't do this. Don't take her to court. And I said, so what should I do? I'm cornered. I have no option. And she said, I don't know what you should do, but I know you shouldn't do this. And then she disappeared. And I woke up and I was, oh my God, what does she mean? And then eventually I realized, and that was something that was coming from my mother's representation. So it's not from me in the sense that I wouldn't come up with that idea. It was her stance, not mine. Uh-huh. Her stance was, if you fight with the mother of your kids, even if you win, you lose.
Yeah.
They lose.
Yeah. Smart mother.
Because it's not that she's going to say, sure, yeah, I lost it. Well, no, it's going to get worse. And then I changed it. When I realized that, I said, okay, so what can I do that can alleviate this pain without having to fight? And then I decided to move to Rio de Janeiro for 1 year, be there next to them. Uh-huh. And that reaccommodated things. Then I moved back here and I'm still asking her to send them to me, and we're still not in agreement, but we're not fighting, and they're not, the kids are not having to experience that.
Yes, right. Yes.
And so I think this is a good example, because I wouldn't come up with that idea, the solution by myself. I needed the counseling of my mother. Yes. And she doesn't live in this world, but she lives in my mind.
Yes. Wow. Yes. Or you had that idea in the back of your mind and you needed to hear it from somebody who was going to kind of convince you, I have a question.
Exactly.
When you had that dream, did you wake up and do you share your dreams regularly as a dream? I
shared them with my partner, Luisa. So we tend to every morning tell each other what we dreamt. And also when I have the kids with me or when I'm there, this is a question that I ask them every morning. They seldom produce a dream report. And I think it's because of too much screen time, but that's another problem.
Interesting. I love this sharing. It's like, what did you learn at school today? But instead of asking that, it's what did you learn in your dreams last night? That's what a great question. Like, I don't know if I have any parents that are going to be listening, but for all the parents listening, not just what you learned at school, but what you learned when you were dreaming. So I know you write a little bit about, my understanding is that you write a little bit about how to optimize for sleep and also for dreams, right? You said screen time is not great. It sounds like for dreams or sleeping, but what can we do to make sure we're sleeping well and dreaming well?
First of all, not go to sleep too late.
Okay.
I think for most people, you need between 6 and 8 hours of sleep a night. Do some reverse engineering, right? If you need to wake up at 6, so you need to be in bed by 10. And I think this is difficult to do nowadays, but it's possible. It means basically switching off all screens 1 hour before the target time to sleep, because that's the time, if you have no visual stimulation, then your melatonin will rise and then you will feel like sleeping. Most people will. The second is to avoid many things that can disrupt sleep. Heavy exercise at night, heavy eating at night, alcohol, cannabis. Well, if it's cannabidiol, CBD, that may help. Most people will have good sleep with CBD, but THC is actually detrimental to REM sleep. So people want to drink or want to smoke cannabis, do it in the morning or in the afternoon, but not at night if they want to dream. Sleep pills, those GABAergic drugs, benzodiazepinic drugs, Zolpidem. Zolpidem is recently there was some good evidence showing that Zolpidem does not provide the benefits of sleep in terms of detox of the brain.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like I've heard a lot of any sort of pharmacological drug tends to actually prohibit you from having REM sleep. Specifically, Xanax is one of them, who I know people who were needed that in order to actually sleep were not producing REM sleep at all, which is kind of a terrifying thought.
And also the conventional antidepressants, which is also a good reason to look into psychedelics, because psychedelics, they will, depending on how they're administered, they can actually increase your dreaming afterward. Not acutely, It will suppress sleep, but then days or weeks after. So I think that notion that you will take a pill and go to sleep is, I think science has debunked that, even though the pharmaceutical companies are still selling those pills and people are addicted to them. But in fact, they don't produce sleep. They produce a simulacrum of sleep. And as you say, typically they curtail REM sleep. So I think that what are the good things you can do? Relax, chill, meditate, concentrate, put some intention. Say, I want to sleep, I want to dream, I want to recall my dreaming, and pose a question, bring a question. Right? I have this problem. I have this emotional problem. I have this professional problem. I have whatever. This is something that is very common among Native Americans, especially in South America, which is the case I know the most. But also it was common in ancient Egypt, ancient Greece, ancient Rome, which is that people would propitiate dreaming. They would come to the temple of Apollo, for example, looking for diagnosis of a disease, looking for an indication of a treatment, bringing the problem to the forefront rather than waiting passively for the dream to help you,
Oh, interesting. So not just recalling and telling what your dream was when you wake up, but before you going to bed saying, journaling or thinking, this is something I'm coping with or dealing with. How do I do that? How do I prepare?
Very interesting.
Why had I never considered that? And I was just thinking this morning because I had a dream last night that related to what I was thinking just before I fell asleep. So logic would have it that if I prepared what I wanted to dream about, maybe I would.
Are there any natural ways to help induce sleep? Obviously, some people take melatonin. Magnesium is another way for people to induce L-theanine. Any thoughts on that?
I'm not a medical doctor. I'm a biologist. So when I say things, it's just my opinion. But melatonin is not a bad option because it's something we produce in our own bodies, in the pineal gland. But I think that it's good to take melatonin if you cannot produce melatonin enough, even if you do everything right. But I wouldn't take melatonin before doing everything right. I think you only need to bring in a drug if you cannot achieve that through other means that are more.
So don't take melatonin and scroll on TikTok for 2 hours.
Right? I mean, what's the point? Exactly.
Maybe if you just stop
I think
scrolling.
People need to be consistent. I think melatonin is something that is endogenous. So I think if you have a good reason to take it, it's okay. CBD, cannabidiol, tends to consolidate sleep for people that are, for example, I'm 54. So sometimes I wake up 2 times in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. If I take CBD, I don't.
Oh, interesting.
So that has a benefit because the sleep is not fragmented. But it doesn't work for everybody, so it's a case-by-case thing. I think that in terms of natural products, there are several. For example, passion fruit. If you make a juice of the passion fruit, if you break the little seeds, this is a very good inducer of sleep. There are several things here in Brazil that people use in a more traditional medicine, like mulungu, artemisia. But I don't know the equivalent. There must exist several equivalent plants in the United States. And I think those are all interesting things. But I think that the most important thing is how to deal with anxiety. Because we are so anxious and we are so waiting for the next novelty and what's going on in the world and what's going on all the time, and this FOMO all the time. And I think that's what really, and I see it with the teenagers. I have a 14-year-old and a 7-year-old, and it's very difficult to constrain that. You know, it's and so it's like a lot of children saying, "Oh, I have attention deficit disorder," and it's actually a lot of just too much screen time.
Something that strikes me too, like I think that, you know, with the world and the news cycle and the screen time, just I think things are very fraught right now as the world feels very tense. And I'm sure there are points in history at which, you know, people felt similarly, and hindsight is 2020, but this feels like a particularly tense moment. And I wonder if this like dream sharing, I wonder if we would find that we're having similar dreams around similar times. You know, are we experiencing similar themes in our dreams in the US? In Ukraine, I'm Ukrainian, so that's top of mind for me. You know, wherever you are in the world, in Brazil, are people having similar themes to their dreams because of what's happening locally in your community? And that, again, speaks to the value of sharing the dream.
Let me say something about this. During the pandemic, several laboratories across the world, including mine, we were able to measure the link between what people were experiencing in terms of anxiety and depression and etc., and dreaming, and you had this phenomenon of very similar dreams across the globe, which is like, sure, I mean, we were all submitted to a very similar fear, this feeling of impending death. That I think so that created an experience that for us Westerners is almost surreal, like having the same dream of a person that you don't even know. But for many Native for indigenous populations in South America, for example, for the people, the Wayu people the Guajiros that exist between Venezuela and Colombia, they regularly have collective dreams. So we have 10 people having similar dream.
Wow!
And for them, this is like, you know, that it's actually a demonstration that they are connected, right? That they are connected, they're living the same situation. And I think because we live in such an individualistic society, it's hard to recognize the similarities. As you say, like we're living this very tense moment in the planet, this feeling that, very bad things are happening already. But this feeling that things are going to escalate. So why wouldn't we dream a similar dream? This was very well documented before the rise of Nazi fascism in Germany, and also before the First World War. The dreams that people were bringing to the psychotherapy in the 1910, 1914 period, and also in the 1933 to 39 period, were dreams that were clearly for seeing the future. I mean, but as I write in this book, The Oracle of Night, is not foreseeing the future that will happen for sure, because as far as we know, physics does not allow the future to, right? The future hasn't happened yet.
Right.
So it's not something you can determine for sure, but it's what I call a probabilistic oracle. So based on the probabilities, based on what's going on, where is this heading to?
Yeah.
And I think that the fact that we are so disconnected from dreaming is part of our current problem, because we are not properly envisioning the consequences of our actions. The people that are involved in the Israel-Iran war, the people that are involved in the Ukraine war are most, if not all, men
Yeah.
with power and no dreaming. They're not. It's only a nightmare. So there's an issue there in terms of introspection. We're lacking introspection.
Oh my God. I feel like I need another episode. That just broke my brain. So the idea that, I mean, if we all, again, step back, tuned in with our intuition, had the ability to recall and share our dreams and use them as a mechanism to forecast what might come, or the way we're feeling about what might come, or solutions, like you said, like with your mother coming to you, right? What is the subconscious solution to this problem that I'm not seeing or hearing or listening to, perhaps because of my own stress or ego or whatever is in the way?
Yeah.
And how do I tap into that to I don't. It's my mind.
I also think it would be interesting to study world leaders. Obviously, we couldn't do this because not everybody lives anymore. But world leaders who had a propensity for war and lack of REM sleep. Are they getting enough REM sleep? Do they have, like their interpersonal skills are, diminished? They're agitated a lot more. Mm-hmm. Like that would be fascinating.
Versus the ones who are oriented towards diplomacy and
relations. Like, I mean, if that really actually impacts your ability to be empathetic.
Yeah. I mean, or not even maybe in the military. I mean, people who are leaders of big companies,
sure.
Right? If you have a Fortune 100 CEO, like, are they dreaming, and to what extent are they dreaming? Are they sleeping, during times of high stress and volatility? Like, what do you do to take care of yourself? And does that actually affect the outcome of the trajectory of your business? Yeah. I can't wait to tell everyone that I see today about this conversation. Is there anything that we're not asking you or that you want to share that we haven't asked?
No, I think we took this to a very interesting point of conversation, which is the political aspect of all this. Mm-hmm. We are living in a world in which, from the point of view of our, let's say, Paleolithic grandmothers, everything is solved. We don't have to, kill a beast to eat. We're not going to be attacked by lions, So we basically solve. If we organize things in this planet, there's enough food and shelter, and we could certainly have a happy planet if we were able to wisely use the resources and the knowledge accumulated in the past, let's say, 300,000 years. But most people don't feel that way. Most people feel the opposite, that we are living in a period of scarcity and there's not enough for everybody, and we cannot control our intolerance for other people's behaviors. So it's a situation that seems like a perfect storm amidst the richest, most, amazing accumulation of power and financial power. If the 3,000 billionaires of this planet decided to pay taxes and not fund intolerance, right there, you would have such a change in the course of things. So I think that we are really going through this great insomnia. We're going through this situation in which everybody is addicted to screens. Everybody is anxious. Everybody's sleeping less than necessary. Most people are eating trash. There's this whole issue of ultra processed food and the microbiome.
She knows, yeah.
So, yes. Which is right. It's your thing. So we are really making it so difficult for ourselves to enjoy those 300,000 years of evolution. We really could live a better situation if only the strongest did not want to prey on the weakest. But that's a very old inertial pattern of behavior that it becomes very difficult to detach from that if you don't dream properly, if you don't share your dreams, if you don't become empathetic, if you don't share fears and desires, if the only thing you care is about becoming a stronger predator. There we go. This is what's going on. We can see what's going on. So I think it's in the end, dreaming is a political topic.
I have to be completely honest. I did not expect the conversation to go in this direction. I'm so happy that it did. I think it's a fascinating way to kind of close and wrap things up and to look at the bigger picture.
Cool.
It's not just the singular and the individual. It really is the communal, the political, the global. And the more we see it that way, I think the more we'll all benefit.
Truly. This has been fascinating. I'm so excited to read your book, and learn more and continue to think about this. It's
share your dreams with me.
And share my dreams with Tanya. Yeah, I mean, there's so much that we don't know in the realm of science. And I think it's such a privilege to get to speak to someone who spent so much of their life learning about something so intently. And thank you so much for sharing everything.
Thank you. Also, likewise, it's great to talk to you.
When I started this podcast, someone asked me a really great question. He said, would you still do this even if nobody listened to it? And my answer was like, yes, unequivocally, absolutely no questions. I would do this even if not a single soul listened to this podcast. This project has been such a joy for me. I look forward to recording every episode, to doing the research, to bringing together two people who just like wouldn't otherwise meet. It's been just something really, really special. If you did enjoy listening and you do want to share it, that would just be an added bonus. Give it a follow, like, share, drop your comments and questions, review. We are Smart People Get Curious everywhere, Instagram, YouTube, you name it. If you have someone you'd like to see on the show, please let me know. If you have a topic you want to suggest for one of our guests, please let me know. In the meantime, stay curious. Big thanks to Cameron, my amazing producer, Ruby Western, for the incredible design, and not just to the guests who join us every week, but also to their amazing EAs, executive assistants on all sides, scheduling and coordinating this podcast across multiple time zones with multiple people is no small feat. So super grateful to you.